threatening facts. Number 1. India has become the first largest importer of palm oil in the world by importing $11 billion palm oil every year. Number 2. Every individual Indian consumes 15 kilograms oil per year. Result? Number 1. India has one of world's highest burdens of cardiovascular diseases. Number 2. 4 million heart attacks occur every year in India. Number 3. In India, 32,457 individuals succumbed to heart attacks in 2022. Number 4. Non-communicable cardiovascular diseases accounts for 45% of deaths in the 40 to 69-year age group irrespective of gender. Let's join hands together to create awareness against cardiovascular diseases threat. Join the wellness community with world-famous India-born American scientist and Nobel panelist Dr. Asim Duttaroy. Dr. Asim Duttaroy contributed 30 long years in the discoveries of antithrombotic factors present in kiwifruits to reduce the cardiovascular diseases threats. His discover and patented kiwifruit extract KFE passes 8 human trials to prove its ability of normalizing blood pressure and several cardiovascular problems.
Good evening, Mr. Nag, and good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to share again about the work that I'm doing and why it is so important for preventing cardiovascular disease, why even after all sorts of development in cardiovascular disease and management, still we have a big problem. Cardiovascular disease is #1 killer in the world, especially in India. And the question is, what went wrong and what should we do now? So today I would like to take you there and giving you some alternative option that I believe through research that it could actually drastically improve the management of cardiovascular health and prevent the premature cardiovascular death. Any cardiovascular death is premature, of course, because we're not supposed to die as soon as when the cardiovascular attack happens, we die. So it is a really big issue in terms of health and also our well-being of ourselves and family. So without much ado, I'll straight go to my lecture. I'll be talking about what I talked that why we are targeting platelet in order to prevent cardiovascular disease, because there are drugs like lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, lowering, lipid loads in the body, but still we are not in a place to say that we actually eradicate cardiovascular disease. Rather, we are having a much more cardiovascular event than ever before, especially in India, and it's expanded from aged old people to the young people. So, and also the athletes, and those are also so-called physically active, those people are getting cardiac events. So what is going wrong and what we don't know and what we would like to do, that will be the talk, and what are the remedy that we have in our hand. So without much that, I will talk to I don't know the knowledge status of the audience, but I would like to tell something about the blood. We have 5 liters of blood, and there are different cells with different purpose. There are immune cells. They are like armed forces. They are looking for any foreign bodies that enters in our bloodstream. Then they will fight and kill them. Even the tumors or cancer, they're supposed to kill and do and make clean up the debris, etc. And the red blood cell, with a 3 months life, they carry oxygens throughout the body and bring back carbon dioxide. Then we exchange with the environment and we take oxygen. That's how we give oxygen to all the tissues. We grow. We are healthy because of this. And the life is red blood cell is 3 months. And when you have problems with disease or something, you go to the doctor. They will measure the blood, how much blood cells we have and what sort of it. Is there any changes? in number, and there from there they can predict whether you have infection, whether you have a hemoglobin short, or etc. But the most important cell that I'll be talking about in terms of cardiovascular disease, platelet we have around a few billions in the blood, and they are actually 400,000 per microliter of the blood, and they are there. And this is the most important when it comes to cardiovascular disease. And you will know that the platelet, these are very important because they are involved in cardiovascular event, penultimate event, last event, and its name is thrombosis. That's why thrombocyte. Sorry, that's why it is called thrombosis when the event is there. But the question is what it does and what we should do to prevent the cardiovascular attack in terms of platelet modulation. I'll be talking about it and why it is important. And most of the cardiovascular event, of course, they get whether they have a high blood pressure or they have a high cholesterol. They get all this medicine. In addition, they get antiplatelet drug like aspirin. But still, it is not good enough to keep them alive. You know that cardiac event happens today or tomorrow. So I'll take you there slowly, and then you'll realize the importance of antiplatelet therapy that we are talking about. And this is a normal hemostatic process. The blood vessels, when they get injured, and then we have three different reactions happen. One is from the vessel wall, there's a constriction happen, neural signal comes to the brain, and so that the blood does not come out. Another thing happen is the platelet activation happen, aggregation, the cells, blood cells, they are aggregated, comes to the place where there is injuries there, they try to seal it. Because if we lose the blood, we will die. That's a very important thing, that platelets should be there, and they will make aggregate and they make a clot so that no blood can come out of the system. And the other thing happens is the contact tissue factor, where the blood coagulation protein get activated and they produce polymers, and then they ultimately produce fibrin, and all this together they produce stable hemostatic plaque. And for that reason, for that we are surviving despite we injure ourselves, despite there is could be internal bleeding or could be external bleeding, and all the mammalian system develop these things so that we survive. But the important thing, this platelet aggregation, if it happens wrongly in wrong place, then we have a cardiovascular problem or stroke or etc. or other problems could happen. And so the question is, what should we do? And if you look at cardiovascular risk factor, there are hundreds of risk factors. Of course, we know the high blood cholesterol is a risk factor, blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, overweight, and oldness. If you get old, then is a problem of the artery or vein get wrinkled and the blood pressure developed, and so many things happen. That is one of the reasons of the cardiovascular disease. But still, we don't know the 50% of what are the other risk factors. Because you see, I'll tell later on that a lot of people with normal blood pressure or normal blood cholesterol, they are having a cardiovascular event. And actually, in the hospital, those who are cardiovascular patient, most of them are having a normal cholesterol level. So it's very bizarre and intriguing why it is like this. Still, we give statin, etc., to lower the blood cholesterol and lower the blood pressure. Now I'll go to the different risk factor of cardiovascular disease. Some of the risk factor we cannot change, like genetic, race, ethnicity, getting old. And gender is not true anymore. Male and female both are subject to similar cardiovascular event, even female getting much more. And these are the things we cannot change. But we can change the green circle thing, like smoking. Smoking is a big problem for cardiovascular disease. If somebody smokes, they take a lot of free radicals, oxygen, reactive oxygen, etc., and they can damage DNA, protein, lipid, etc., hyperactivate the platelet, and that create a problem. Diabetes mellitus also, like hyper sugar. The sugar level is very high in the blood. They changes the platelet activity. They changes the membrane. They changes the kidney and the high blood pressure is a result, and they are the risk factor of cardiovascular disease. And physical activity is very important. If you are not physically active, this is the most important risk factor. Then there is a tendency of platelet aggregation, and also atherosclerotic development could be there. Obesity is another thing. If people carry more weight than they should, and then there's a big problem for the heart to pump blood to all over the body, because the body is heavy, and also a lot of fats are there. They coagulate, they actually narrow the artery, etc., and create a high back pressure, etc. And high cholesterol, these are one of the important risk factors to even today. And the high blood pressure is also a problem. But all these things we can change by either taking lifestyle changes, or stopping smoking, or stopping or don't going to the too much environmental polluted place. So the environmental pollution is one of the factors. If we change all these things, we really can prevent cardiovascular disease. But the question is how we can be more effective and more preventive of the cardiovascular disease. That I'll be talking today. If we look at this slide, this is the Framingham study. It involved 5,000 people. And they showed that those who have a high, you see the curve, that is, with the curve is plotted against the cholesterol and versus percents of population having cardiac attack. If you look at people with myocardial infarction, cardiac event, they have this profile. And this maximum is 30% having a more around 250 milligram per deciliter of cholesterol. And those who don't have myocardial, they have also similar cholesterol level. So that means 80% people who develop cardiac coronary arterial disease have the same blood cholesterol values as those who don't. It happens actually in the Greece and other area, where they have a big tummy and smokes and obesity, but their cardiac events are not that many. But if any Indian or Caucasian, they do like this, then there is a big problem. So important thing is probably is not the cholesterol. There are other factors than that we don't know actually, which are responsible for cardiovascular events. As you know, the statin study shows that the statin, it cannot relate the lowering LDL actually improving the cardiovascular status. So again, there are a lot of evidence coming showing that the cholesterol is not the only factor. There are so many other factors responsible for cardiovascular event. Now, what are the cholesterol? That is, I think you might want to know, and I also know that some people already knew it. We have a called LDL, that's a bad cholesterol, and HDL is a good cholesterol. HDL is a good cholesterol because it removes the cholesterol from the circulation from the body to the liver, where it is degraded and produce testosterone, etc., and repackage, etc. So HDL is high, means you are actually in the reverse transport of cholesterol. You are removing cholesterol from the blood to the liver, and in that way you lower the cholesterol level. But if somebody has a high LDL or low density lipoprotein cholesterol, that is actually bad. That transport the cholesterol to all the tissues, and that is very important, of course. All the tissue need cholesterol for membrane production, for other things, and metabolism. But if it's too much is there, then there is a big problem. And high level of cholesterol is showing that there may be a heart disease risk. And of course, it should not be more than 100 milligram per day. This is a standard guidelines we follow. And HDL cholesterol should be more than 60 milligram. For Indians, it is always less for some reason. You can only increase HDL cholesterol by good exercise and good diet, etc. And weight loss, healthy fat, and quitting smoking. That all actually contribute to have the high HDL. But doing the opposite thing always increase the LDL cholesterol. So LDL cholesterol increase is related to cardiovascular disease. But this is not the end of the story. If you look at these two slides, you see that in South Japan, the cholesterol level is maximum is in here, 150. And in Finland, the the average cholesterol level in the population is 250. So every country has a different kind of threshold level. So it is not true that what is 250 or 300 in UK, it will be the same in India, or all the Indian different states or population or ethical, they have the similar cholesterol level. It is quite a variable, as you see here. In the right side, you see here that the Mexican children and American children. Mexican children, their cholesterol level is much lower compared to the American children. So if you want to say that this level is for cardiovascular disease, then all the Mexicans, they have a more cardiovascular disease, they don't fall into this category. So cholesterol level, it depends on the ethical background, diet, geography, etc. And every population has certain level, and you cannot compare one with the other. And it could be true also in a personal basis also. So this is a risk factor based on cardiovascular disease targeted. It is a highly variable. You cannot target. So this is a problem with cholesterol. And if you look at this slide, if you see that of all the population hospitalized for heart attack, 25% have only high cholesterol. Rest of them have normal cholesterol. Clearly, cholesterol is not the risk factor that we have been led to believe. And there are a lot of studies that came out with this. They're linking high cholesterol with heart disease is highly inconsistent. And there are this paper, the JAMA, the Internal Medicine, published 2 years back. They actually reviewed 21 trials, and they showed that there is is a definite relationship between the cholesterol and heart disease. Now, question is, there is another one that study is showing that the statin, we now know it is a more beneficial effect other than lowering cholesterol, probably antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and modulating platelet function. Because you see here in the left side, patient with no known heart disease, they don't get 98% people don't get any benefit. And those who had heart disease treated with statin for 5 years, 96% didn't get any benefit of that. So only 1.2% people get benefit of the statin. So what is going on here? So we develop so much based on statin, cholesterol, etc. But it seems like at the end of the day, it is not serving the purpose. And on the contrary, there is a study with 192 countries showing that high cholesterol is good for your health. Although this data is not very accurate, but still is showing that cholesterol is not the only factors. And this is again what I mentioned, that every country has a different level of cholesterol, is their ideal cholesterol, so-called ideal cholesterol. You see the Northern Europe, it is very high. And if you go to the Serbia, then it is only less than 10 millimolar per liter. But if you go to the Japan, it's much low. So every country has a different. So those who are living here, they have a less of, there's a similar cardiovascular problem, those who have actually 2.6 or 5 in Southern European country. So that means you cannot really generalize the level of cholesterol with the cardiovascular disease all over the world, same way. Now, why it is like that we don't get always the cholesterol linking with cardiovascular event? Because other thing is happening. Because if cholesterol, mostly in LDL form, the low density lipoprotein form, if they get oxidized, if you have less of antioxidant, if you don't have a proper antioxidant diet you have, then LDL will be oxidized to produce ox-LDL. And this oxidized LDL, it will be taken up by different cells, macrophages, and they will produce foam cell. And this is the beginning of atherosclerosis. And vascular smooth muscle cell, they also pick up this oxidized LDL, and also platelet. They will become hyperactive by taking oxidized LDL. So it is not the LDL, it is their oxidized form that is actually creating damage to the platelet. So if you somehow inhibit the platelet hyperactivity, so they don't take the oxidized LDL, then you can save some portion of development of atherosclerotic processes. So how we can do this? because if we really take care of the platelet, which is, as we show here, that cholesterol, statin, etc., the relationship and cardiovascular disease is uncertain. But we know now that if the cholesterol get oxidized or there is a lot of oxidative stress in the system, that will convert LDL to oxidized LDL, and then oxidized LDL will be taken up by all these tissues, cells like endothelial cells, vascular smooth muscle cells, and platelet, and they will become activated, and they will make a big problem, and they will be the part of the atherosclerotic processes. So the question is, a platelet is always treated as a penultimate cell, as a hemostatic cell, so that inhibit hemostatic, they stop the blood coagulation. But there is no attention to that. That is also involved in atherosclerotic plaque formation by oxidative stress, by oxidized LDL, etc. Then it can become a part of the atherosclerotic processes. But here, but we know that why a platelet is important in cardiovascular, even in the cardiac event, because most of the plaque is formed, and atherosclerotic plaque platelet is there, and it is shown that if you give aspirin, then less platelet is there, and if you give aspirin, then the people can extend life a little bit more, because it actually inhibit platelet activation, and platelet is not involved in cardiac events. So all these things showing that aspirin can be used as a antiplatelet and people can get benefit. But the question is that modification of platelet activity by aspirin is okay for the patient, those who have already cardiovascular disease, those who have a stent, or those who have a bypass surgery. Only they can get the aspirin, because aspirin has a lot of side effect. It can create a bleeding problem. 30% people don't respond to it, and also this platelet can damage the intestine and can have other sorts of problem. For all this reason, the American Food and Drug Administration and also European Cardiac Association, they said normal people cannot use aspirin as a prevention method for cardiovascular event by preventing platelet aggregation. So what happens? Because why we are talking about platelet, plaque, and also the vessels, etc. Because the most important thing that we're surviving because of we have a closed cardiovascular system where the blood has been pumped by our heart when you get oxygen through the lung from the air, and this oxygen is then transported around 60,000 miles network inside us and give oxygen to capillaries, as you see here, and get back the carbon dioxide, and we release there. And as long as this system, the vessel system, is okay, whether it is a coronary circulation or is a limb or brain, whatever it is, there is no problem, because heart is pumping, we are getting oxygen, and oxygen is delivered to the tissue, etc. The problem starts if this blood vessel system or delivery system is somehow get narrow, and it is much more problem when it is in the coronary circulation in the heart, because heart needs a lot of energy, and if their coronary circulation is blocked, then the muscle cannot get oxygen, and that is called myocardial infarction and can lead to cardiovascular death. And there is also other arterial kind of things in the limb. If the vessel in the limb get also blocked, then oxygen the difficult walking and pain, etc. can happen. It may not be that as dangerous as we have block in the coronary circulation, but it can also still the problem. Now, question is what platelet does. Of course, we have 10 billion or something platelets in our vascular system, and within the blood vessel, it travels around, and it's looking for any discontinuity in terms of breakage. If you cut your vessel wall, then platelet will come and make a kind of a clot there so that no blood can go out. So this is its job. It's like a very instantaneously it will come there and stop bleeding, because if bleeds, then we'll die. So this is the main job it does. But this is its job. We call hemostatic job. And once the clot is formed and the vessel is repaired, then it will be sloughed off. It will be dissolved and the blood will flow again and all these things. So we have a good, nice system, clean system. But this vessel network, it can be damaged, can be narrowed because of our physical activity, because of our diet, because of other reasons. I'll come later on. And platelet can get hyperactive if somebody gets smoke or obese or high polluted area or stress. Then platelet is trying to become more kind of aggressive or stick to each other and try to aggregate wherever they can. And that's the problem of getting sudden cardiac events or stroke, etc. So under normal conditions, this is a blood vessel kind of things. All these sticky material molecules are actually buried, sleeping inside the vessel wall. You see here, this is the exterior, and the blood is flowing fine. No, it's a laminar flow, and this is fine. But if somehow we actually damage this system, this endothelium, by taking a wrong kind of food, by stress factors, platelet hyperactivity, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, they can bombard this place and this factor will pop up. And then they will drag the molecule. These are the binding. They will bind the cells like platelet, leukocyte, and will make a plaque formation, kind of a narrowing of the artery can happen. And that can lead to this situation. So in a normal situation, the frictionless flow, it's called laminar flow, that will go like this. But the turbulent flow, it happens when there is a kind of a curvature in our circulation. Then the blood can flow back, and something we call is disturbed flow, or under this condition only, the plaque formation can happen. Not in laminar flow, not here, but it can happen here. And this is because of the turbulent blood flow, because of the architecture of the vessel wall, and also could be because of the high lipid, because of hyperglycemia and other conditions, and the precipitation or development of plaque, and that can lead to platelet to go move around and etc. And that makes platelet hyperactive, and that it changes in the microenvironment in the circulation, and that can happen in hypertension, hyperglycemic condition, hyperlipidemia, smoking, etc. And that is the beginning of atherosclerotic processes. So it is not the cholesterol itself. It is the platelet hyperactivity under certain conditions that lead to the atherosclerotic plaque formation. And then these von Willebrand factors and they'll pops up, and then they will bind with the different cells, platelet and leukocytes, and because these are moving, these billions of cells are moving, and they will stick here, and then it's the beginning of the atherosclerotic plaque formation. As you see here, it is the inflammation, oxidative stress, etc., that lead and the disturbed blood flow that lead to the platelet hyperactivity, that lead to the plaque formation. But our platelet is not the same always. It changes, because if we sit long time, as we are sitting now, that platelet become hyperactive. And if somebody smokes all the times, or all not some, quite a number of pops, then there is a lot of oxidative stress in the body, and oxygen free radical, etc. form, and that can activate the platelet, and platelet will produce microparticle, and this microparticle containing the vicious kind of molecules, they will attach to the endothelium of the vessel wall and can produce the plaque. And also the bad diet, meat eaters with the red meats, and also the trans fatty acid, high fat diet, etc. All that actually changes the membrane of the cells, membrane of the endothelium, that can lead to the stickiness of the platelets, and that can changes the membrane architecture of the endothelium. That can all lead to the platelet hyperactivity, and it is the beginning of platelet plaque formation. So the question is, of course, there are two populations here. One population, those who have already cardiovascular problem. They have stent or they have bypass surgery, but doctors want them, they should not go for development of plaque formation, additional plaque formation. So what they do, they try to address this issue by lowering the blood pressure, by lowering the cholesterol, but whatever they have, invariably, they will get antiplatelet drugs, aspirin plus Plavix, so that platelet does not get activated and does not produce more plaque. Because you cannot make body zero cholesterol. Cholesterol will be there, only you are reducing it. So if platelet become hyperactive, and then they will eat the LDL cholesterol, they produce LDL oxidized cholesterol, and platelet become active, and they will produce the plaque. And we see that's why the aspirin or aspirin type drug is given to everyone, but everyone patient, not the normal or so-called healthy people. But these people that have a platelet hyperactivity also, but unfortunately they don't know, and they cannot take antiplatelet drugs, aspirin or etc., because it is not advised by Food and Drug Administration and also European cardio, because aspirin has a lot of side effect. One side effect is you will destroy your intestine wall, and that produces a ulcer, etc. And also 30% people are resistant to aspirin. Aspirin does not simply work, and other race syndrome, etc., etc. So aspirin is no go. But these people with insulin resistance, that can be anybody from above 20 years old to anyone, their insulin is not working properly because of bad diet, because of physical inactivity, obesity, etc. And they have a platelet hyperactivity. And all diabetic people, type 2 or type 1, either controlled or uncontrolled, hyperactivity platelet is there. Smokers have this, and sedentary lifestyle. Those who are sitting all the time, office work or on the sofa, couch potato or something like that, the lifestyle, they will have also platelet activity, hyperactivity. Obese people have hyperactivity. Old people, of course, will have hyperactivity. Stress people, those who have stress, they produce catecholamine, etc. The platelet will be hyperactive, and dietary effect is also important. If the diet is a high-fat diet, either it could be biryani or whatever, containing a lot of fats, etc., and trans fat, and also palm oil, and also cholesterol in diet is not that important because we don't absorb cholesterol that much. We now know of because of cholesterol, only 20% to 30% are absorbed, rest of them are not absorbed. But synthesizing cholesterol is more important. That's why we need a statin to stop the cholesterol. But as we said earlier, even having a statin does not change much the cardiac disease profile and also the cholesterol profile. But statin prevent cardiovascular disease by different mechanism, probably by changing the antioxidant profile of the body and by other pleiotropic mechanism that we don't know. But definitely it is not the via cholesterol. And oxidative stress, of course, anybody stress, hyperlipidemic condition, hypertension condition, and oxidative stress that lead to hyperactivity. Any cancer patient, of course, because of chemotherapy or by medicine, the platelet become active, and most of the cancer people die of heart attack because the platelet become hyperactive and atherosclerotic plaque is formed because of cancer-led platelet hyperactivity. Inflammation in the body. Inflammation is a major issue. And as I said, LDL itself is probably not that bad. High level may be bad, but low level, if LDL get oxidized LDL, then it is taken up by the receptor, scavenger receptor, and they will then produce all sorts of nasty molecules from cytokines to everything and create a big problem. Pollution is another issue. There's a lot of pollution we have now, and they can activate the platelet. Is PM 2.5 micron that can activate the platelet, and platelet become active. They release molecules and produce atherosclerotic plaque formation. It can happen with young people, etc. And another is a gut dysbiosis, the bacteria. If we change our bacteria and the environmental bacteria come, then not good for us, because they will produce some compound called trimethylamine, and this trimethylamine then produce trimethyl oxide, amine oxide, nitric oxide, and trimethyl nitric oxide. They will activate the platelet and can produce plaque. And also stress is a big factor. Now, question is, what should we do? Because these people, you cannot give them aspirin, because aspirin, they cannot take lifelong, actually. Generally, the cardiac patient is at above 60, and as long as they can extend their life, so aspirin is given. And this is a compromised situation, of course, because their intestine will be damaged, and so a lot of side effect will be there. But still, there is no choice. But these people, they have a platelet hyperactivity. They don't have a expressed cardiovascular disease, but they are developing plaque formation. And after 5, 6, 10 years, the plaque is formed, narrow, and then they might have, or they will face the cardiovascular event. But aspirin we cannot give because it's a stomach irritation. I already mentioned some people allergy, and 30 people are resistant. It can damage the kidney, and also liver toxicity is one of the result of that. So you cannot do. So if we summarize whatever I say so far, that that all these conditions lead to platelet hyperactivity, and this platelet hyperactivity, in the presence of cholesterol and others, high or low, whatever, they produce plaque, atherosclerotic plaque. And once it is started producing, because of the disturbed flow of the blood, then platelet will be more active and more plaque will be formation. And ultimately, cardiovascular event will happen and all these things. And this platelet hyperactive means they will recruit the monocyte, they will produce a lot of cytokines, and they will produce thrombus and cell proliferation. So platelet we know of actually hemostatic cells to stop the hemostasis. But now we know platelet is much more involved in the development of plaque formation, in the inflammation, in the cell proliferation, and recruitment of monocyte, innate immunity, etc. These are all involved in a cardiovascular disease. And platelet produce so many things. As you see here, epinephrine, serotonin, when they get activated. And they are semi-activated if somebody are in a not very physically active life, taking wrong kind of fat, wrong kind of food, sedentary lifestyle, stress, etc. If the platelet get activated, and they will produce all these things, and they will damage the environment. That means the vessel wall, the endothelium, etc. And then endothelium will produce a lot of molecules, adhesive molecules. They will then drag the platelet flow, and they will drag the leukocyte. They will bind together with the help of monocyte macrophages. Then they will go inside the intima, and they produce the foam cell and produce the plaque formation. And this is the way, the main mechanism, how LDL get oxidized if you smoke or some reasons. Oxidize LDL, then it will bind the resting platelet, and then platelet will activate, and this activate platelet will produce all sorts of nasty molecules and will take part in the plaque formation. So you can see here that how LDL also activating, and activated platelet also produce oxidized LDL. So this is a mess. And so if we can make inactivated platelet, then LDL cannot be produced cannot act on oxidized, platelet, because it cannot, the oxidized is called LOX1 receptor will not be expressed in a resting platelet, and then it cannot go that pathway. So this is one of the rationale to make platelet inactive. Another thing is the hyperlipidemic conditions, whether triglyceride, free fatty acid high, or LDL or VLDL, they all activate the platelet, different mechanism, and they can move into, if it is too much, they go to the intima and produce oxidized LDL, and they recruit the foam cell, from monocyte to foam cell, and they will make a mess here and produce kind of a plaque formation. And this platelet then taking oxidized LDL, it will produce hyperactive platelet, and this will, then there is a kind of a situation of plaque formation here. And this is another thing when there is a disturbed flow is there, because if the nice flow is not there, in laminar flow is not there, because of the disturbance, it could be just initiation of plaque formation, etc., or endothelium damage. Then the platelet will have a deflow, And this deflow platelet will produce all sorts of problem for platelet become active, and they will damage the endothelium, and ultimately they will produce the plaque here. I'll not go details mechanism of it. So once you have an activated platelet, because of lifestyle, because of bad diet, because of these things, they can internalize LDL particles, even if you have a normal particle, and they will produce oxidized particles. And this oxidized LDL then will create the mess. And also, this activated platelet also produce so many cytokines, and they will promote the inflammation in the body. The CRP will be high, and they will go everywhere, and can create the hypertension, blood pressure also. And also they will generate the foam cells. Foam cell means there's a fat-laden macrophages, and they will produce the plaque formation also. And also they will stop the vascular regeneration. So you see, the activated platelet, once it can do all sorts of things. So how can we stop the platelet hyperactivation? By dietary or living changes, the lifestyle, etc. Because, as I told you, that hyperactivity of platelet we see in a different situation where they don't have a cardiovascular problems, but they have already some kind of things like hyperlipidemia, unhealthy diet, overweight, smoking, gut bacteria changes, dysbiosis, stress, etc. All these lead to platelet hyperactivity. Of course, if somebody can take pharmaceutical therapy, aspirin, but you cannot use whole life. And also 30% of us anywhere in the world, they are not sensitive to aspirin. They're resistant. It doesn't matter if you take aspirin or not. And second thing is only possibility diet and dietary supplement. But then again, we have to find out how much, and if it is there, they are in a which form, how much you have to take to have a reasonable benefit after taking this thing. That is, I'll be talking about. Of course, omega-3 fatty acid can help from seafood, sea fish. It can be obtained, but it is not available in India in that much. And also it takes long time, because omega-3, you take only 2 to 1 gram maximum, even in Norway, and we have a kilogram of fat, it will be diluted there, and it has to go to the platelet, so it's a big problem. You have to take long time. So this is gone. Only thing we have to find out, if we have antiplatelet, anything that we can use instead of aspirin without side effect, so that people can get benefit, so they can inactivate the platelet actually for under this condition where you see that lead to plaque formation. I'll not talk to you about it. So that was the beginning of the story that I did in almost in 1992, 93, actually look for something which I can use for platelet. Because at that time, everybody was working on antioxidant from fruits and vegetables like vitamin E, polyphenol, etc., to stop the LDL oxidation. But they didn't know that time the LDL oxidation also can be initiated by platelet hyperactivity. And platelet is the most important problem, because oxidized LDL, they pick it up and they can make a huge damage to the endothelium, etc., etc. So people are working to stop the LDL oxidation, while I was working on to inhibit the platelet hyperactivity by taking something from the nature so that it does not take part in the plaque formation, whether it's a cholesterol mediated, inflammation mediated, or it could be stress mediated. So many other factors could be there, but platelet plays a central role in terms of development of plaque formation. And I know that time, and still today is valid, that one cannot take aspirin, those who are healthy, for a long time, because of side effect and other things. So what we did, actually, we tried different fruits and vegetables. It's a very simple chemistry. Actually, we take from tomato to kiwi, etc. And then we smash them and make a juice. And out of juice, we clarify the juice and changes the pH to the normal body blood pH, so that it does not give an acidic response to the platelet. So isolated the platelet, and we aggregated the platelet by using aggregating agent like ADP, collagen, etc. And before that, we added this fruit extract, only 10 microliter, and we tried to find out which fruit is inhibiting platelet aggregation. And to our surprise, we see that kiwifruit and tomato are the most active in inhibiting platelet aggregation in vitro. Almost 88%. Other fruit doesn't have, pear has nothing, no activity against the platelet. So that means the idea is that you take fruits and vegetables, you will be happy because it has got antioxidant. Of course, it is okay in terms of inhibiting LDL oxidation, but when it comes to new dimension that we're looking at, inhibiting the platelet activation and aggregation, this fruit has no value. Only kiwifruit and tomato that inhibit platelet aggregation, 88 to 78%. So this is the result we published in 2004 in kiwifruit paper showing that the kiwifruit extract that we developed from kiwifruit, this is a zero, no kiwifruit there. And once we add the different amount of kiwifruit, we can inhibit platelet aggregation. You would not understand the technology behind it. It is very important. When platelet aggregate, the light passes 100%. So you see that when there is no kiwifruit extract, the aggregation is 100%. But with increasing kiwifruit, in the presence of kiwifruit, we added ADP. With 220 microgram, we can inhibit platelet aggregation completely. So this is the beginning of showing that kiwifruit has something in there which can inhibit platelet aggregation. So then we did human trial with the 2 kiwifruit per day, the whole fruit, and 3 kiwifruit for 28 days. With I don't remember how many people, at least 50 people or something. And then we measure at day 0 and day 28 their platelet aggregation, their blood pressure, etc., etc. We found that their platelet aggregation is reduced from 70 to 53% with 2 kiwifruit, and 3 kiwifruit is like that against all the aggregating agents. So it's clearly showing that what we saw in the test tube, it is working in the human body. That we just moved from test tube study to the human body, giving the kiwifruit 2 kiwifruit per day, 3 kiwifruit per day, and compared the result with day 0 and day 28, and we found that there is a reduction of platelet aggregation response. And we don't want more than 20% platelet aggregation response. The maximum normal activity should be there, not the hyperactivity. Because if we take aspirin, if somebody take aspirin, then he or after 10 days, he will lose 100% platelet aggregation capacity. He's in danger. Anything can happen that can injure the blood vessels, then he cannot stop the blood aggregation, platelet aggregation. He cannot stop it. There will be bleeding problems. And that's why it's a major problem for these people. Taking aspirin is a risk there. So our study design is like that. We'll remove the hyperactivity of the platelet, 20 to 30%, but the physiological property of the platelet should be there. So it was exactly to work like that. And we also found that after 28 days, they have a reduction of triglyceride from 1.16 millimeter, I forgot now, is it milligram per millimeter or something, to 0.87. And not the cholesterol or anything, but triglyceride is reduced. So this is showing that in human trial, the kiwifruit actually reducing platelet aggregation as well as the triglyceride level. Then we were interested because we did the composition study, etc. I'm not going details there. What is in the extract? It is a water soluble, low molecular weight extract. It has a lot of polyphenols, etc., but no sugar or anything. And that has polyphenol we know of that can inhibit some of the enzyme responsible for blood pressure, angiotensin converting enzyme. As you know, the ramipril, etc., being used in India as a lowering blood pressure because they inhibit ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme, so that angiotensin 1 doesn't become angiotensin 2, and then angiotensin 2 work on angiotensin receptor to increase the blood pressure. Here is another medicine is used called losartan that stop binding of angiotensin 2 to their receptor. But here we are looking at whether angiotensin 1 converting to angiotensin 2 by AC is inhibited by kiwifruit extract. And we found our surprise that we used the in vitro study. We found that the dose response curve of the captopril or ramipril are quite parallel with kiwifruit extract. But although the kiwifruit extract you need more because it is a plant product, is a natural product, nevertheless, it has a similar profile. So this is the paper, then we patented it, that this extract also inhibit angiotensin converting enzyme activity, and that's why it can reduce the blood pressure. And after that, there are two large random controlled trial was done using this kiwifruit extract, 200 patients with systolic blood pressure 120 to 140 millimolar mercury for 8 weeks, and we found there is a significant lowering of both systolic and diastolic blood pressure in both the trial. And this is the some of the result of the trial. You see in the control, and we have another arm antioxidant and the blood pressure. As you see, the kiwifruit extract group, their blood pressure is reduced 10 millimeter of mercury. Is better than even drug, actually. And both the systolic and diastolic. And also whole blood aggregation is also changes 23%. So this is study done in Oslo involving 200 people, showing that both systolic and diastolic blood pressure are changed, and also whole blood aggregation. And this is another study. This is the study, I think, with 33 groups, and we showed that the blood pressure is decreased in the kiwifruit groups. And this is the design, if you're interested, but I don't think we use very 67.5 milligram of kiwifruit plus placebo, and they are coming, the volunteers after screening, they are divided in two groups, one kiwifruit and the placebo, the same looking capsule, one does not have kiwifruit and others, and there is a washout period, then they will change the group 10 days, and this is the way it is done so that there is no biasness in the result. And this is the description of the groups showing the changes, the initial values, and the changes is happening. So again, within 3 hours, you get a 6 millimeter mercury changes. 6 hours is there, and after this it vanishes. That happens. Its activity remains 12 hours, and then you have to take again. And that is happening with blood pressure drug also. And this is the systolic, and at the screening, and this is the smoker, and this is the normal with people, non-smoker. I should not say normal. I have to be politically right. So it is showing that this blood pressure actually decreased both from starting from 3 hours to 24 hours, both smokers and non-smokers. So we have a kiwifruit extract which actually inhibit angiotensin converting enzyme. That's why it lowered blood pressure. At the same time, it lowers the platelet hyperactivity, so it can stop the atherosclerotic plaque formation, and there will be no CVD is there. So we can conclude that the presence of the potent antiplatelet and anti-hypertensive factors in the sugar-free kiwifruit extract, and these factors are water soluble, heat stable, and molecular size is less than 1,000. And they are bioavailable. After taking within 2 hours, you can see the effect in the body by changing the blood pressure and the platelet aggregation response, and it can be used as a cardioprotective agents. Because it's lowered the platelet aggregation, so it will improve the healthy blood flow. Healthy blood flow is very important so that it can increase the laminar flow much and less of disturbed blood flow, so less atherosclerotic plaque formation. So, and there are several publication and patent of this work by my group, and also some from America and some also in Norway without me. But they found the similar results showing that the potency of the kiwifruit extract in lowering the platelet aggregation and blood pressure. And now in the HeartyFine, they also that you are selling or probably already selling, that also contain arginine. Arginine is also very important. It increases the nitric oxide and lower the blood pressure and the vascular function. And this is the human trial done with kiwifruit extract. There are 7 situations. Out of them, 6th and 7th are not published yet. The 6th one, number 6 one, large one, involving 50 people, and this is done by CRO in Ireland. They showed the 5.97 millimeter mercury changes in the blood pressure. So, and there is one unpublished data showing 10 to 15 millimolar. And there are number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are several publications on that showing how important and how potent it is in lowering blood pressure and platelet aggregation. So here you are with the HeartyFine that contain the kiwifruit extract plus arginine, and I believe that will stop the plaque formation and it will prevent the cardiovascular event. And even some people have already plaque and having stent, etc., taking aspirin in conjunction with that, if they take it, it will be very potent kind of a preventive agent for cardiovascular event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Advisor, sir, for your fabulous and fantabulous PPT presentations. Actually, we have got some questionnaires from our market survey, and in your fabulous presentations, all the questionnaires got its answer clearly. Even though, sir, one question is raised from our user ends, and that is that that is very important for us to know that. And that one is that, sir, why you are so much interested, especially in the HeartyFine, especially in making people understanding about the importance of having HeartyFine, sir. The main questions we got from the market survey, actually, they already got some ideas about your inventions, and they have already started realizing the necessities of having the HeartyFine capsules. And actually, sir, we know from your side what actually made you interested in inventing such an unique product, especially for Indian people, sir.
Okay. As I mentioned, that there is a huge group that are having a platelet hyperactivity, diabetic, pre-diabetic, obese, young people, etc., with a sedentary lifestyle, obesity, and less physical activity. All these people, without, they don't know, their platelet become hyperactive and producing plaque. After 5, 6 years or later, this plaque will create the cardiac events, and ultimately there will be event there. So the question is, how can you stop this plaque formation? That was my thing, my thinking at that time. And of course, there is a cholesterol lowering drug, etc. But it is those people are developing. As I mentioned, about 60-70% comes in the hospital. Their cholesterol is normal, but they have cardiac heart. So something other thing going on apart from cholesterol. So we thought that I thought actually the platelet hyperactivity could be the major issue which is overlooked. And today we know that it is more and more people coming that inflammation and platelet hyperactivity is creating a havoc because they are producing the plaque. They are using cholesterol, etc., as a raw material, but anybody, if they survive, the cholesterol is there in the circulation. So there's no problem to get the cholesterol to make the plaque. Only thing if we can tame the platelet, they don't get activated. So they don't use the LDL cholesterol to produce the plaque, then there is no problem. And as I showed you, that there is no universal unit of cholesterol all over the world. Like North European, they have high cholesterol, but Japan has a very low cholesterol, but they have the heart attack. Even the range I'm talking about, some people have 2.5 to 8 or 10 millimole cholesterol, and they have a similar no problem at all. So it is also showing that a standard we are using it is highly variable in different countries. It is not the same thing as a Mexico and American kids is there. So much more important is the inflammation and platelet hyperactivity, induced inflammation, and how high platelet become hyperactive and how can we stop it. And we cannot stop it by using standard medicine like aspirin, etc., because 30% of us are resistant to aspirin. And secondly, aspirin, a lot of people have allergy to aspirin. And if you take daily basis aspirin, you will destroy the gut. A lot of wound formation will be there, ultimately lead to ulcer. And it's a big problem. That's why the world bodies, those are managing the cardiovascular disease, they said no aspirin for non-cardiac patient. And we are talking about so-called healthy people, non-cardiac patient, but they have a huge problem of plaque formation. And that is the only way you can, of course, you can avoid certain things, that you can go for good diet. You cannot avoid pollution being in India. You cannot avoid the dysbiosis of the gut. You cannot avoid sitting in the office for a long time. You cannot avoid the pollution and so many things, stress actually activating the platelet. And this activated platelet, they're roaming around. And when they go to near coronary circulation, when the bifurcated blood vessels where the disturbed blood flow can happen, reverse, their platelet become active. And this condition all favors to produce the plaque formation. Here we are with this product, we are making sure that the platelet will be inactive, remain inactive. So it may have other activity, but it does not have activity that will go stick each other and produce the plaque. That's why it is important. And that's why the philosophy behind it, to save the people from developing cardiovascular disease by inhibiting the platelet hyperactivity and inhibiting the plaque formation throughout the life course.
Sir, another question we have got from the public saying, and that is that we know that prevention can be good, but why the medical science are not too much serious about educating the people how to prevent the heart attack, rather having the treatment after being affected by heart attack, sir? This is a question.
This is a problem because it is okay in a Western country. There is a control there. They check it up and all these things. But the problem is developing plaque. There is no symptom there unless you block quite significantly the cardiac coronary circulation. Then you get the pain, etc. Then you go to the doctor before you don't go. But of course, there are a lot of programs there to have a good life and good physical activity and stressful less life, and so that you don't have develop the cardiovascular disease through this way. So it is not true that there are a lot of medical association in the Western world. As they're working on it, especially in Europe and also in America. There 95% of the cardiac event can be avoided if we go follow this lifestyle, follow this sort of product, and follow good fruits and vegetable, omega-3 fatty acid. All these things actually can tame the platelet and can make sure the clean blood flow is there, no laminar blood flow is there, so there are no hypertension, etc. As there. It is a big program is there, but we have it too. One is a preventive cardiovascular disease, other is the therapeutic one. But therapeutic one only when somebody has a disease, go to the hospital, then they do. Still, they have to go this sort of again, so that make sure they are not dependent on the medicine. It is there. So it is not true that they are not helping, because we know the problem where it is. Medicine is medicine, but we are looking at the preventive and therapeutic one. Yeah. Preventing one, not therapeutic. Therapeutic is we taken care of when the patient comes. But majority of the people, they need help like this.